Koto Markie here. Now, I'm afraid I'm having lots of studio problems. I used to have my indoor studio and my mobile studio. Now I'm lucky to have anything. I dust on the screen there. So I'm showing you a picture on my screen because looking at me is not pleasant. Of a gentleman from the 18th century, the 1700s, who you might not recognise, but who is had a big influence on lots of things. The Marquis de Sade, from whom we get the term sadism, which I've talked about a bit in other videos, some of the psychological videos. Now, the reason you're looking at him, apart from the fact he's better looking than me, is because I had a Mandela effect regarding this gentleman recently, and I wanted to share it with you. In fact, I promised to share it with you, and this is off the back of a video I did. It was a book review, and he's briefly mentioned in this book here, because he was deemed insane and committed to a psychiatric institution back in his day for a period. He also spent long periods of time in jail. And let me explain what a Mandela effect is for those of you who may not know. It's not a Mandela effect, Mandela, as in Nelson Mandela. Lots of people have a memory. Nelson Mandela was freed from prison, and then I'm not sure when he died, but lots of people have a very distinct memory of his funeral being, I think, back in the 1980s. And of course, he lived long after that. Eventually died, but people will swear blind that they watched his funeral on television. They heard about it, they talked about it, and a Mandela effect has been recognised as something that happens with all kinds of other things as well. Things that people misremember. That's a possible explanation for the Mandela effect. But for example, certain logos and brand names are often Mandela effects. People will remember a certain logo being a certain way, and then when they look at it, I think, well, it's not like that, and they look into whether it's changed, and then they research it and say, well, no, it's always been like that, but people remember it very differently. So just Google it, you'll find loads of stuff. And I've actually had other Mandela effects, and I've got a whole playlist on Mandela effects, so check out the playlist. Now, some people think the Mandela effect is a consequence of a glitch in the matrix, or maybe that we're slipping into a parallel universe, or that something that the fabric of time and space has been monkeyed around with or interfered with in some way, or glitched, meaning that time has actually changed, reality has actually changed. But we've experienced, either back when back when people saw the Mandela funeral, or now when they realise it didn't happen in the 80s. That's the point in time where things have gone a bit googly. There you go. That's a very technical explanation of the Mandela effect. So, but of course, it could just be a sociological thing, just the way we're all different. We perceive things differently. So it's not even necessarily to do with memory. It's to do with how we perceive things in the first place. And then, of course, it can be to do with memory. It can be a whole bunch of reasons, but like I always say with these, the kind of videos that I do on things that are kind of getting into the realms of the Fortean or the paranormal or the supernatural, is I believe what we must do is identify the phenomenon, and then when we identify the phenomenon, we mustn't just jump to conclusions about what the cause is. It could be a whole bunch of causes. So maybe some of these Mandela effects are glitches in the matrix, and some of them are just glitches in our minds. I think my ones are mainly glitches in my mind. So I'm not making a great claim. I'm not claiming to have had this far out supernatural experience, but I'm claiming to have had an experience which is interesting and anomalous, and therefore worthy of sharing with my lovely subscribers and viewers and patrons. So my experience was basically because I'm interested in history. I'm interested in like weird history and spooky history and like dark history and all this kind of thing. And I thought that the Marquis de Sade was. I thought he was from a different era. Actually, I thought he was from a good few centuries further back than when he was actually around. And I thought that he was a monster. Not a literal monster, but a human monster. I thought he was somebody that did, of course, an awful lot of pain to people on a mass scale. And I had him in the same bracket, if you like, as Vlad the Impaler and Countess Bathory. So Vlad the Impaler, the name is a good clue, really. He impaled a lot of people. He did all sorts of terrible things, but he was he was a ruler and a mass torturer, and did some appalling things. And Countess Bathory, what did she do? She thought that she would prolong either her life or her youthful looks by bathing in the blood of virgins, and therefore killed lots of people, lots of servants. I think she's a little bit more controversial, isn't she? I'm not sure. Vlad the Impaler is pretty clear cut. Countess Bathory, I think, is a little bit less clear. And all these kind of stories inspired, things like the novel Dracula and a generation of, or more than a generation of horror novels and films and all that genre. There's another one as well, Gilles de Rais, who was accused of, so another kind of aristocrat. These are all kind of European aristocrats, including Marquis de Sade, who were accused of mass murder or mass torture. Gilles de Rais, I think, is a little bit more controversial. He might not have done anything. He might have just got on the wrong side of the wrong people, and accusations were made. Now, my understanding was that the Marquis de Sade was one of these characters, but actually, I went to Google him. Well, first of all, he came up in that book that I was reading, and I thought, I didn't realise he was from that period. So I Googled him, and generally, when you Google him, what comes up is writer, not mass murderer, not torturer. He was I think he was a sexual sadist, in the BDSM kind of sense of things. I don't think he was. If you look at some of his behaviours by modern standards, you would bang him up in jail, because of the ages of some of the people that he had sexual encounters with, many of whom I think were sex workers. But by today's standards, that would be a really bad thing. That would, but of his day, I think he might have accidentally. There might have been an accidental death that was caused by his use of an aphrodisiac called Spanish fly, but he's not. He was somebody that was a bit ahead of his time, and a free thinker, and he wrote stuff that didn't go down very well in his age. He crossed a lot of cultural boundaries, but he's not. He's not a Vlad the Impaler or a Countess Bathory or whoever the other one was. And that's what I thought he was. I didn't think he looked like that. I thought he was a couple of centuries before. Maybe he had an ancestor. So my memory of who he was, based on looking at history, is completely different to the actual reality. I mean, really, he was accused of being, basically being a kind of a pornographer, really, but he was more of a philosopher, and a social commentator, I guess, would be a better way of putting it. If he was around today, I think he would probably have conformed more to the laws of today, I like to think. And would not be that controversial at all. People probably wouldn't take too much notice of him, because a lot of what he had to say, I think, is stuff that we take for granted today anyway. But that's where the term sadism comes from. And yeah, he wasn't who I thought he was. So a Mandela effect. So it's definitely a Mandela effect. Mandela effect is a phenomenon. The cause, well, that's another thing altogether. Probably, I think more than likely, not a glitch in the matrix or a tear in the fabric of reality. More likely, just a misunderstanding on my part, or me misremembering something far more boring. But it's still a Mandela effect, because that's the phenomena. So check out my playlist of Mandela effects, because I've had a few. And if you've not heard of it before, just Google Mandela effects. There's loads of stuff written on it, including some stuff that's very kind of cosmic, and gives it all these kind of complex explanations, which may or may not be correct, but very, very interesting. So there you go. Not a mass murderer, not a monster, a bit naughty, but not for his age, really. But basically his ideas and his words are what got him into trouble, really, rather than any of his sexual behaviours. There we go. So thank you for watching. Remember, this is a video with a channel with a serious purpose. We're here to help people with a horrible condition called retroactive jealousy, and everything that you do, including just watching to the very end, subscribing, any of that stuff, joining us as a patron, helps us do that work. So you're helping people. You're helping us to help other people, and we really appreciate it. So we'll see you soon. Might be another video about retroactive jealousy. Might be another video about something completely different. Rangimarie.